Wives of Ireland, how would you cope if your husband had an affair with another woman? Would you stab him to death in bed with a carving knife? Would you take the children and run home to mother? Would you reason with him or try to sit it out? Well, this is Shirley Eskapa. She is from South Africa. She's a sociologist, and she's written a book called Woman versus Woman, in which she examines the phenomenon of errant husbands running off with other ladies and how their wives coped with it. And she can recommend various courses of action. The one thing you don't do, she says in the book, is to get panicky and call off the whole thing. If you stay and fight, and you can stay and fight the other woman, you keep the family and the marriage together. Welcome, Shirley. You seem to paint men in this book as terrible idiots and wet fools who are prey to every passing female mantis, and they can't resist temptation.
No, I don't think I've portrayed them quite like that. What I've tried to show is that when a man does go off with another woman, it doesn't necessarily mean that the marriage was defective to start with. In other words, the other woman isn't a symptom in every case of a failing marriage, because the belief is that the other woman is always the consequence and never the cause of a marital breakdown. Now, I found that this simply wasn't true, that many men left marriages that were not unhappy for the other woman, and everyone I spoke to, and I spoke to almost 200 men, but of those 200, everyone who had left a marriage that was not unhappy for the other woman and set up a new household regretted it bitterly.
What, you mean the second time round was just as dreary as the first?
Precisely. This is what they said, something like that, that what happened was that they thought they would sort of perpetuate this ecstasy, which was why they had terminated their marriage in the first place. And then they found that the ecstasy diminished, and they said bitterly, and what did they have? Another wife. That sort of thing.
And did you find that at the stage when a man is going through an affair with the other woman, that he is not to be reasoned with?
Yes. Many wives said, look, they realized that their husbands had lost his senses, so they didn't see why they should lose all of theirs. So they did very resourceful things, and they would counter the other woman without the husband ever knowing, in fact, that they knew anything about it or that they were waging war. Like the woman who knew that her best friend was having an affair with her husband because she found the earrings of the best friend in the husband's pocket. So she merely took the best friend out to lunch wearing the earrings. Nothing was said. These are the kinds of ways that women handle
And what message did the other woman get from seeing her earrings on the
I think she knew that war was declared. She was married herself, and she didn't want to go in for a very serious conflict and end her own marriage too. But you see, more and more wives are having to face the other woman, because more and more women have become the other woman, not least those wives who've been abandoned by their husbands for someone else. I would speak to wives at the beginning of my research who would say they could never do that sort of thing, never. And then they would say to me 2 years on, well, now they're the other woman, what do I suggest they do about it? Do you see, they became the other woman.
Yes. What are some of the telltale signs that a husband, I mean, we want to be constructive about this and helpful to people. What are the telltale signs that are sure giveaways that a husband is having an affair or it's just started?
Well, usually it's a change in behavior, but some women have noticed their husbands have become very interested in the state of their underclothing, their underpants especially. They iron them very carefully, things like that. One woman reported the resumption of sexual activity after an abstinence of 5 years, and she said, well, he's practicing on me. But there are other symptoms, the usual things, lipstick on shirts and things like that. One man actually started dyeing the hair on his chest. Dyeing.
You're kidding?
Yes. Another became sort of neurotic.
Can't find any.
Another became neurotically obsessed with the condition of his toenails, or they suddenly start dieting, change their hairstyles, change their manner of dress, start wearing trendy haircuts, raincoats, things like that. One wife just noticed her husband's eyes flicker over a star in the horoscope in the newspaper that was unconnected with their family, and so she came to the right conclusion that way.
What, he was looking at the other woman's horoscope?
Yes, she guessed. She wondered why. She realized at once there had to be a reason for him looking at this unknown star.
Well, now, having discovered that that is the situation, give me some of the ploys adopted by wives to counteract, apart from the earrings, what are the kinds of things?
Well, women are very imaginative and very resourceful in this area. One wife, for example, knew that her husband was engaged in an affair simply because she saw him admire a small baby in a supermarket. She knew that he loathed children, especially tiny children. Their children were away at school. So what she decided to do was to acquire a baby, bring the baby into the household. She never said a word about this other woman. By the way, I forgot to say that after she saw the photograph, she went through his pockets and she found a photograph of a young woman with a baby. So she proceeded to borrow a baby. She approached her dentist receptionist. It was a very difficult thing to do, to get a baby.
Borrow a baby, where do you turn, right?
But she managed. And she brought the baby into the household with nappies drying on heaters and prams and cots, and the child was awake all night, but she and the baby slept happily during the day. After a week, the husband, reassessed the situation. Another wife actually sent all her children, 4 children, in a taxi, and the dog, to the husband's love nest where he was living in the country with his younger other woman. And she included instructions about the asthma injections the children required. And one of them, by the way, was allergic to the dog, and so on. The children didn't very long withstand that other woman, who certainly couldn't bear the onslaught of those 4 children. And this wife went off on a holiday to America. Laker was, she could manage it because it was the time of
Good
Laker.
for her, and that put an end to that.